Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending Marymount University's Center for Career Development Young Alumni panel from college to career. We're excited to host this event in honor of Senior Week and to hear from three distinguished Marymount alum about their professional experiences and accomplishments since earning their degree at Marymount. Moderating our panel this afternoon is current student Alexis Wong. Alexis is a rising sophomore student majoring in business administration. Alexis also serves as one of our student staff members in the Center for Career Development, and we're excited to have her lead the panel today. To start off today's panel, Alexis will ask our panelists a series of questions pertaining to their professional experiences and how Marymount supported them in their professional journey. We will also save time at the end of the panel for the audience to ask questions of the participants. Please feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A section of the webinar throughout the event. Now, it is my pleasure to turn the event over to Alexis, who will introduce our panelists.
Thanks, Emily. Good afternoon, everyone. I am pleased to moderate this afternoon's panel and to facilitate a conversation with three distinguished Marymount alumni. Our first panelist is Marielle Garnier. Marielle graduated from Marymount University in 2017 with a Bachelor of Arts in Criminal Justice and a double minor in Forensic and Criminal Investigations and Psychology. During her time at Marymount University, she interned with the Metropolitan Police Department in DC, Arlington Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Marielle is currently employed as an analyst with the Department of Justice in Washington, DC. Thank you for joining us, Marielle.
Thank you for having me.
Our next panelist is Brianna, or Bree Grooms. Bree graduated in 2020 with a Bachelor's of Arts in Politics with a minor in Communication. At Marymount, she was an orientation leader and peer mentor for 3 years and a student ambassador. She was also president of Black Student Association and a member of the Sigma Alpha chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Professionally, she is the team director of the Northside Family YMCA in Richmond, Virginia. Thanks for being here, Bree.
Thank you.
Our final panelist is Tyga Walker. Tyga graduated from Marymount in 2020 with a degree in cybersecurity and networking. While at Marymount, he was a student athlete on the men's basketball team and a student leader at Marymount. Currently, he works for Freddie Mac as an information security analyst and will reach his 1-year milestone this coming June. He is looking forward to continuing his education at George Mason University, Volcano School of Engineering this fall to pursue a master's degree in cybersecurity engineering. Thank you for joining us, Tyga.
Thanks for having me.
To start off our panel this afternoon, we would love to hear from our panelists about how their education experiences at Marymount helped them succeed professionally both at Marymount and post-graduation. Marielle, let's start with you, and then Bree and Tyga, feel free to jump in. Our first formal question is, what is the best career advice you have ever received?
I've received a few. Never give up. Know your worth. It only takes one person and a series of no's to give you that chance. And I would know because I started out in human resources with the Department of Justice, and it took 3 application rounds, over 7 interviews, and several rejections to finally become an analyst. And so just keep persevering. You're a student for life, and you keep learning stuff. I'm a cyber analyst, and I have no cyber background, so I'm still learning. And then find your pool table. So what this means is a very good friend of mine said recently to me, I was stressing over something over work, and he was like, you need to decompress and find that pool table. He's an avid billiards player, and he was like, you need to find that thing. So work-life balance, keep you sane, and just decompress and put that work aside is really important. So
thank you so much. That's actually really helpful. Tyga, do you want to answer next?
Yeah, as mentioned already, definitely the best advice that I have gotten so far was from my senior manager. And I'm happy I work at a place that really stress and importance on mental health. And the great thing about that is my senior manager told me that the work will always be there for you. So taking any days off if I'm burned out from work or anything out of the ordinary, like going on in my personal life, they do a great job of letting me know like it's okay to take those days off because when you come back, the work will still be there for you. So that's helped a lot.
That's really awesome. I know that I personally struggle with, saying I need help. And so hearing from somebody like you who's already made it and is in the real world after school, who, can still prioritize themselves is really awesome.
Yeah, agreed.
Brianna, do you want to go next?
Sure. For me, definitely the best advice I got was from Dr. McFarland. Not sure if you guys know her, but basically it was to risk something or forever sit with your dreams. So honestly, take that risk, apply, do whatever you need to do. That may just seem like it's so far-fetched, but just take that risk because you never know what can happen. And then also is just that the most common way a person can kind of, I guess, give up their power is by saying they don't have any. So know your worth, know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and just soar from there.
That's very true. I never thought about it like that. For our next question, what is one piece of advice you would give to a new Marymount graduate as they begin their next professional step? Marielle, do you want to start us off again?
Sure. Networking, the biggest thing. The connections you make can lead you to the next opportunity or the new job or whatever. A friend may know a friend who knows a friend who, so it's just crazy how the world works. So just don't be afraid to network and be proactive. For example, when I first started working, my supervisor asked for someone to volunteer for the silliest of tasks. Well, I wanted to put my best foot forward and show like, hey, I will do it. And that speaks volumes, and do it to your fullest capacity and your best. And that the quality and the initiative, that speaks volumes with supervisors. So, and they might come to you for the next task because they are like, you did an awesome job. And then just be open. Just because you maybe start at the bottom of the totem pole. I started in HR, not what I wanted to do, but it was stepping stones, right? So just be open to the experience and don't discount those experiences. Starting in HR, I learned a lot about the hiring process, how they interview, what they're looking for specifically, and I'm able to help friends and colleagues who are applying to different jobs within the organization. So don't discount where you start at and those skills that you learn along the way.
I definitely agree with you that the little things go a long way, especially in the eyes of like your supervisors and that kind of thing. I know when I first started working, like at my first job at a restaurant, I would always say yes. If they ever needed anything, if they ever needed help, just yes, I can do it. So yeah, I definitely respect that. And you got to do what you got to do to get where you want to be. Tiger, do you want to go next?
Yeah, to piggyback off of that. Definitely taking a positive out of any situation you encounter. So for example, like a job interview, there was a time it was the first semester of my senior year. I got flown out for an interview with EY in Chicago, and it was for a cybersecurity consulting position. And at that time, I didn't necessarily have the skill set, since I haven't taken my cybersecurity classes, which I did in second semester. So I was just going into it positive and all that. And I ended up not getting the position. But what I took out from it was the interview skills that I did gain from that. And also some of the information that I gained from the hiring manager. So taking those positives of my interview experience rather than thinking of the negatives of how I didn't get that job. So trying to just, at the end of the day, taking the positive out of any situation you can.
That's so true as well. Like, I know it's so easy to get bogged down by what you might see as a failure, but if you turn it into a learning experience, I mean, how far you can go with that.
Right. Yeah, I think it's definitely very important kind of prioritize your mistakes rather than your successes, because you learn more from your mistakes that you made, because the successes that you had, like, sure, there's a certain reason why you didn't succeed there, but I like to kind of capitalize on my mistakes and errors and just keep learning off of that.
For sure, for sure. Brianna, do you want to go next?
Yeah. For me, definitely would be is don't be afraid to put your plan B into place. I never thought I would come back home after graduating. I told my parents I was just going to stay in that Northern Virginia area, but here I am back in Richmond. So don't be afraid to just do it or don't. Like hanging out, I found myself hanging out in the middle of the line and kind of second guessing myself and what I wanted to do, but really just try it. Like just go for it. Honestly, but just also have that team in your back pocket that you know you can call on that will give you maybe that extra push, or just someone to keep it real with you, let you know that you're really just psyching yourself out. Like just do it, you can do it. I definitely had that group of people in my back pocket that pushed me through, especially with this pandemic happening and me not even knowing what was going on in life at all at that time of graduation. So yeah.
So would you say that confidence and a healthy support system is key to success?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Next question. How has COVID-19 impacted your professional experience this past year, and what have you learned from it? Marielle?
So I had already been working since the pandemic, so I wasn't looking for a new job. However, it did highlight how unprepared my office was for reduced staffing levels, and where I work, it's not accommodating to working from home based on the databases we have access to. So that was interesting. We had to get creative on how to work around that, and what we could do from home, and then supplement that when we were in the office. So just being flexible and adaptable and not having a hissy fit because you weren't able to do X, Y, and Z and blah, blah, blah. Things happen. You just kind of had to go with it. It was all new for everyone. And then everything just took longer. Everything was, I applied to a new job within the organization, but it took, I think, almost 7 months. So from start to finish. So it just patience, flexibility, adaptability, that I think that was, yeah, that's what I learned from it. Things don't go according to plan. So.
Which I think the pandemic has definitely been a curse, but in some ways it's been a blessing with, kind of slowing down. I think here in business today, we kind of have the problem of trying to get everything done so quickly without taking the time to really check everything and make sure you're prepared for anything. Tyga, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so definitely going back to like adaptability, and also want to throw in like resiliency, because I think it's great how a lot of people were able to adapt to the changes from the pandemic, so like working remotely, and even like kudos to like all the parents out there being able to like work and take care of their kids, which is I don't want to say crazy, but which is like super fantastic, because that's not easy to do. So definitely it really goes to show how individuals can exceed a lot more than they already know they can. So definitely showing that resiliency portion, and yeah.
And going back to what Marielle said and what you say, I don't think you really get resilience without the patience. You definitely have to roll with the punches, see how it goes, trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
Completely, yeah. Brianna, what do you have to say about it?
I would say for me, like professional wise, I guess like my whole time at Marymount, I was preparing for these in-person interviews and like how am I going to dress? What am I going to do? And sitting in front of people. And that was just not my reality when it came down to it. I was interviewing from like sometimes literally like my Rixie room. Literally, I don't even know how I did that with everything that was in the background happening. And then actually, I think with the pandemic, I wouldn't have got to where I am today. Like I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity that I have right now, being a team director and working with teens and the whole idea of what they're going through with school. kind of like what Tyga said, I would have never got this opportunity. But also it just showed me, I learned a lot about myself and how dedicated I was to find that job after school, even though if it wasn't like a part of my original plan or even go along with my major. I majored in politics and I minored in communication. Like I'm not doing any of that right now, but it's still a stepping stone. I didn't put those dreams like long gone, make them long gone, but they're definitely still there. So dedication for sure.
Yes. Sorry, give me 1 second. Can you explain more about how it helps you in your job and relating to the teams you work with?
Yeah, so right now I do run a program. It's called Leaders Club. So it's actually nationwide. They have it all over the place, and it's ran through like local YMCAs. And basically I work with middle through high schoolers. And I do run a program as well called Achievers. And Achievers is a college workforce readiness type of program. So really what I'm doing with them is actually looking at like, hey, what is your next step? Are you trying to go to school? Some of them aren't trying to go to school. Looking at the steps that I took, like trying to figure out how to figure out what school is the best for you, looking at if you want to go far. And a lot of them are worried about some schools requiring them to be completely vaccinated to go, and scholarships and things like that. So I think me living through or graduating during a pandemic definitely helped me relate to them more because they're actually graduating high school, continuing still in a pandemic. So I can kind of relate to them in that way as well.
Yeah. Now, this past year that just ended was my first year of college, and it's very different in a pandemic. I don't know if I would say I got the full college experience, but you just have to try your best with what you have, and I think this has been a really great experience for everybody, even though it's been very difficult. The next question is, what is the most valuable lesson you have learned over the last year as a post-college grad? Marielle?
Well, I graduated in 2017, but again, the patience thing and also to Brianna's point is, yes, I still have dreams and I haven't gotten there yet, but everything that I'm doing in between is it's a whole professional development. It's a walk through life of professional development, and just don't discount those things. And so there's politics of the office, there's all the hoopla and brouhaha that comes with jobs and the workforce. But past all that, it's really to develop you, and ultimately you'll get to your goals. You just have to put that time, once again, patience. I'm probably the most impatient person, very type A. So trying to remind myself like, hey, the world doesn't work on Marielle's time, right? So just take it in stride. And I have a mentor and he keeps repeating that to me. He's like, just take it in stride, take advantage, like be present, look what you're doing and look at the impact you're having. So I think that's been the most valuable thing, is that constant reminder, like just be present. And especially in a pandemic, like just be there and do what you can now. Don't worry about, have your goals, but don't worry about always about tomorrow. What am I going to do 6 months from now? So on. So
I can definitely relate to you on that one as another type A person. I struggle with not thinking too far ahead and, like you said, living in the moment. A question I have about what you said was you had a mentor that kind of helped you stay in check. Would you recommend to all people like coming out of college to find a mentor and stick with them?
So my mentor sort of fell into my lap. I didn't look for one. It was kind of, my management was like, hey, we think it'd really be good for you because you're new to being an analyst, and maybe having someone senior to sort of guide you or whatever. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever you want me to do, I'll do, that whole thing of being open. But so if your workforce or the company you work for has something like that, yes, I would recommend it. But just finding that one, it doesn't have to be in name and title mentor, but that person that you can confide in and ask like, hey, what training would you recommend? Or someone that is just there in your office. It doesn't have to be entitled officially, but I would get to know your coworkers. I mean, they're going to be on your team, right? And you guys are working together. So find that person that you guys can support each other and be better professionals.
And that's definitely a part of networking too, would you say? Yeah. Tyga, do you want to go next?
Yes, do you mind repeating the question again?
Yeah, of course. What is the most valuable lesson you have learned over the last year as a post-college grad?
Okay. Definitely, as mentioned before, adapting to change, and also being comfortable when you're uncomfortable, essentially. And I can specify that. So going into my job, I didn't have a lot of experience, and I was a little shy, uncomfortable with that thing, but I was able to adapt like a certain different technologies we use at my company. And I was always hungry to strive for more. And I just didn't want to settle, essentially. I always try to see, okay, I learned this. What else can I learn, essentially? That will help not only myself in my role, but my teammates as well. And that's helped me exceed with my team. Even though I'm coming up on my 1 year, I've been able to help out certain team members with different applications, other software we use on our team. So making sure that I don't settle within my role and trying to always expand and just kind of grow at large. So I would say maybe I'm a little bit opposite of a type B, but I still do have some type A qualities.
And would you say that most of everyone else is kind of in the same boat of trying to get used to being uncomfortable?
Yes. And that is a hard skill to like manage. Like I wouldn't say like I'm the best at it, but I learned a lot from being a student athlete, which I can get into later, but definitely getting comfortable, being uncomfortable will definitely help you out in the long run.
And you being a student athlete, I mean, I'm sure it helped a lot with the teamwork and understanding.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, Brianna, do you want to answer the question?
Yeah, for me, it was definitely being able to be like, okay, it's my turn to sit back and listen, being super active. On Marymount's campus, I was always the one telling people what's happening, especially when it came to events. And I was on the cheer team, I was captain, like doing all these other things. And like, basically I was giving direction. And then now when I got this job, I had to be that person that's like, it's okay to go from like, not the top of the food chain, but you know what it's like when you're like a senior in high school and then you're like a freshman. Like it's like you went from like the top of the food chain to like the bottom. And I had to realize that like it's okay, and this is my turn to learn and listen to people who have been here a little bit longer than me. And then also that learning from them as well can actually help me, even though I'm not directly experiencing what they're experiencing. It's giving me kind of like the extra leg up because I already know, hey, when this happens, this is how I can execute it this way because this is what this person went through. Listening to other people's experiences definitely has helped me a lot through this. I've only been at this job for about 7 months. So like, it's definitely helped me with this, not super new, but like, I'm definitely one of the newbies here. Yeah.
It kind of sounds like you kind of agree with what Marielle was saying about, you know, kind of using your resources around you, your coworkers, your supervisors to push yourself further in your success.
Yes.
Awesome. So for our last formal question, we have, how do you see our professional work or experiences being different in a post-pandemic world? Marielle?
So for us specifically, I don't think internally the way we work is going to change. I mean, I've been back at work full time since August. So it was more like a mini break between March and August. And but I will say the way we function with the US government works with the private sector is going to have to change. I think the private sector realizes that you can do things more virtually, even if it's post-pandemic. So I think we're going to have to adapt to that aspect of maybe we will refrain from going in person and talking to people as often. So adapting along with the private sector, I think, is going to be really important, not just stuck in our ways. And the government takes forever to make things change. So it might be a a slow process, but I think that's the way we're going to move forward, is sort of go along with what the rest of the world is doing.
Oh yeah, for sure, with the virtual and everything. I mean, even just this webinar, how we're able to have a whole conversation over Zoom and still be safe and that kind of thing. Tyga?
Yeah, I agree as well. Since I started remotely, which was a little not how I envisioned starting my career, but that's okay. It's been great so far. But essentially adapting when we go back to office and essentially how many days, because I do like working remotely. Even though I do work from 9 to 5, I can essentially schedule my own hours based off of my role. All I need to do is just get my deliverables done. Um, and also every day is different, so I never know what's going to come in the world of cybersecurity. But because I think that we're scheduled to go back in around September for 2 days within the week. So it'll be 2 days in the office, 3 days remote, and kind of adapting to how I've never met anyone within my team or the org in person face to face. And I wonder how productive I will be in the office, because I've heard that more people are productive working from home than compared to the office, because at the office, you can just go grab a bite whenever, go to another, what is it called? Go to another person's desk, talk to them for a little bit, go to another room, do whatever. So kind of adapting to that, but I'm excited just to go back and just kind of see headquarters. So yeah.
So would you say in the world of IT right now that you guys really need to go back in person, or like, do you think IT can stay remote?
Yes, I definitely think it. I mean, it also depends like what your position is within IT. But there's a lot of positions where you can work remotely full time, and I'm not at that point yet. I like having face-to-face interactions with people. I think of myself as a people person, so I want to actually see people, talk to them in person. But working virtual has been fine. So
That makes sense. I definitely miss kind of seeing everybody on campus and, you know, the traditional classroom.
Right.
So I can see how, you know, this is your first like career and everything. Not being able to go in and, you know, really meet everybody in person must be really different and
Yeah,
something to adapt to for sure.
right.
Brianna, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sorry about that. I cannot get myself off mute. But working in like the realm of like youth development is extremely hard on a virtual level. And also I work for a nonprofit, and with us actually shutting down for like 5 months, like that put us in the hole like millions. Like it's actually insane. So trying to figure out how we're gonna, what life will be like when we can actually get out of this kind of deficit kind of thing that we're in right now. Would definitely, like, I don't even know how they're going to do that, but that's going to be something we're going to figure out. Also, it's a little weird for me. Like all of our conferences and things are completely virtual when they're used to, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like the YMCA, but everything is like cheery, jumping up and down, like hand clapping, but also like getting like the job done. So I definitely think that in the future, especially with we are running a lot of virtual sessions with my job. I have like 5 kids in a room here, 5 kids over here, and they're all like 6 feet apart for right now. We just got new regulations. They can be like 3 feet apart. So hopefully we can get back into some interaction. But even for them, like watching the kids who like can't necessarily talk to their teachers, or they're doing virtual everything, I think it's just a struggle all around. Yeah.
So it sounds like overall the consensus between the three of you, from going through the pandemic and now kind of getting ready to get out of the pandemic, the most important thing that you've learned is just adaptability. Would you guys agree? Adaptability, you know, kind of rolling with the punches.
And yeah, and then, so at least for my job, I mean, the pandemic hit, and then we were all like, oh, well, this has never happened before. There was no playbook, there was no guidelines of how to work around this. And so I think we finally, at least for my job, we finally have gotten to a point where we understood how to navigate. And now I think we're going to have to relearn a whole new cycle, because post-pandemic is not what it was like pre-pandemic, right? I mean, a lot of things have changed. So I think it's going to be a whole nother learning cycle of writing new guidelines once again of, okay, we know how to deal with a pandemic. Now we have to learn how to deal with the post-pandemic. So I think there's going to be a learning curve. And once again, that requires patience, communication, adaptability, flexibility, and hopefully someday we'll get back to normal, whatever normal is.
Which hopefully during the adjustment period, because we've already adjusted once, it won't be quite as difficult. But I guess we'll see when that comes. So thank you all for your responses. That was our final formal question for the panel. If the attendees want to go ahead and put any questions they have in the Q&A that you would like to ask our panelists, you can go ahead right now. While we wait for them to put in their questions, we have a few more questions from us. What would you say is the difference between being a mentor and a coach? Do you think there is a difference?
This is just an open-ended question.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think there definitely is a difference between a mentor and a coach. I mean, they kind of overlap essentially. And I think from like a sports perspective, a mentor, that could be someone that maybe you don't even specifically talk to. Like, for example, mentor could be someone that you look up to in a sport, like in basketball, for instance. And then a coach can also just be your coach. So kind of having that different kind of like communication aspect, like where you may not be speaking to your mentor, but you are getting valuable advice from him, just or her, from the way that they taken on challenges within their life, how they've succeeded within their sport, all that kind of stuff. And same thing like with your coach. But I think maybe for your coach, it could be specifically for your team and also like outside of sports, but just kind of that communication aspect, I guess.
And I also, to add on to what you said, I feel like a mentor is kind of like a role model. Was that kind of what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Versus a coach is someone who might not even participate in what you're doing, but can give you advice on how to get better.
Right.
Okay. Do either one of you ladies would like to answer?
I'll hop in. I definitely think for me, a mentor is someone that's on kind of like the back end for me, if that makes sense. Like there's someone that I can take what my coach is saying and ask my mentor kind of like, hey, what steps should I do to get to where my coach is trying to get me to? But my coach is more like in the moment, like they're like ahead of me a little bit and they're kind of like, hey, this is where I need you to get to. As a coach is showing me where to get to, but my mentor is really the person that's helping me behind the scenes, like, hey, you can work on these things in the meantime, and then over time you'll get to this level. So that's how I see it.
That makes complete sense. Marielle, do you want to answer? Or?
I agree with everything that's been said, but ultimately both are there to help you obtain a goal or and I think it just depends on what lens you're looking from. And so like athletic, like Tyga said, or the mentors giving you those tools and building blocks to hopefully get to your goals. So it just depends, but I think both are there to help you and support you and try to get you to where you have to be.
For sure, and they should be a part of that support system we were talking about earlier. Another question from our Q&A, we have, do you feel you can negotiate better salary or benefits? If so, how? Marielle, do you want to start us off?
So if you're deciding to go into the US government, your salary is fixed and your benefits are fixed. So there is no negotiation. The only thing I will say is so if you came in with a bachelor's, you're set at a certain price. However, HR does make mistakes. And if you have a master's degree or X amount of work experience behind you, you can say, well, based on your guided policy, like I'm eligible to get a higher salary, but usually it's a set fixed. So you could go online and look at my salary if you wanted to. I mean, it's out there for everyone to see. So, and then benefits, same for everyone. And then you get to choose your healthcare based on a list provided. So it depends on what you're looking for, but ultimately female, male, we all get paid the same, depending on how senior you are.
That's really helpful.
So if like all my supervisors, they're all getting, like my senior supervisors, they all get paid roughly the same amount. I mean, it's on a scale, so you can gauge on, depending on how long someone's been in, you can gauge on what their salary is.
So, like,
I can go into
everything.
grade scales a lot, but there's no to answer the question, no negotiating usually. It's a set price. If you don't like it, well then don't go into the government, I guess.
Do you, either one of you guys, Tyga and Brianna, do you have a different answer maybe?
Yes, not specifically, Freddie Mac is not specifically government, quote unquote, but we were built by Congress. So there's like certain regulations that we have to meet for the government. But in terms of negotiating pay and all that, coming out of school, like I had a fixed rate, and I also had like a certain incentive target pay that I was going to get after my first year, or essentially, and basically make sure that you have goals set and you talk about your goals with your manager. So that could be a good way to negotiate your salary, because I joined in June, so like around Q3, and that's kind of like midway through the year. So goals are typically at Freddie set like in the beginning of the year, and I joined like midway through the year. But I was able to kind of set some goals, and I was able like to reach my goals. So when that time came to essentially renegotiate my salary with my manager, it was typically pretty easy. He already had the numbers that I was perfectly comfortable with, so that part wasn't hard. But just having those goals that you can meet and essentially accomplishing those goals, that will really help you kind of negotiate that compensation.
Yeah, of course. And I think, you know, knowing what you've done and having the confidence, you know, assertiveness to speak your voice and that kind of thing is definitely important too. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome.
To add on to that, I would also say, what are other people at your level doing? You know, you're doing X, Y, and Z, sort of like a baseline, like at this basic level, this is what we're doing, but I've done above and beyond, or I'm doing that same level, so I should be paid as the same as my counterpart. I have a lot of friends in the private sector, so they've told me about this negotiation process.
Yeah, it can sometimes be, I don't want to say scary, like what I mentioned before, like uncomfortable, get comfortable being uncomfortable kind of things. Because like at the end of the day, it is like your money, and so you want to make sure that you are happy with what you're getting. So
yeah, awesome. So for our Q&A, how would you say the market is right now for an entry-level graduate to find a job? Yeah.
I think that would depend on what field you're going into. I know that for government work that requires security clearance, it's taking a lot longer to get through that process. So when I graduated, they said, oh yeah, it's a buffer of about 6 months. Now it's 13 months. So once again, I think hopefully once the post-pandemic, that might change a little bit, or they'll just be playing catch up for the rest of our lives. I don't know. But for US government, I think the biggest thing is if you could get an internship, and that's your way in. Because a lot of at least for my FBI internship, at the end, they asked if I was interested in a job or not. And it makes it all that easier because they don't have to do all the legwork that was already done for your internship. So just something to consider if you're looking to go into government work.
Tyga and Brianna, do you guys have anything else to say about it?
Definitely depends on which field you are in. I know that specifically in cyber, it's growing like tremendously every year. So they are looking for more qualified candidates and candidates also that are like freshly out of school. So I know that field is growing a lot. And also Yeah, that's basically it. That's all I got. I'm freshly new in this space.
And Brianna, do you have anything?
Yeah, I would say definitely like working at youth development or education. A lot of those restraints that are coming along with like taking the praxis or taking any type of those education courses, they're actually becoming super easy. You can take those tests from home now, which I think is like insane because I didn't get the opportunity to take them at home. But definitely there's excellent opportunity there. And then also for just working in the nonprofit sector, definitely opening up. A lot of different things are coming out of this like weird pandemic world. People are trying to make more positions instead of eliminating them. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there as well.
So to kind of summarize what you guys said, you would say that like definitely getting in your internship, making those connections is definitely the best way to kind of make your way in the world. Awesome. Our next question is, what did you wear to your virtual interviews?
I'll hop in. Definitely, I just wore what I would wear if I was going in person. It just kind of helped me mentally make sure that I was prepared. I actually, my very first virtual interview, I actually emailed Emily, and Emily sent me this long book of like everything I should know or prepare myself for, and it helped me 100%. So Emily, if you still have that, definitely share that. That's like amazing. But yeah, I definitely looked nice, made myself feel good about myself, even though I was in my living room. Yeah.
We're so glad that you mentioned that you reached out to Emily even after you graduated, because it's true that we are here for, alumni forever. Once you're a saint,
Yes.
you're always a saint. We're here for you if you ever need anything. Tyga, did you have a virtual interview?
Yes, I did. Like Bree mentioned, I treated that virtual interview as if it was like an in-person interview, just to kind of, I'm gonna say quote unquote, like lock in, just kind of make sure that I was handling this virtual interview the same way I would handle an in-person interview. Like even though it's gonna be it was from like my house and it was like from like a comfortable spot in my house, I still want to treat it as if like I was right there in person. So
You want to put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
You want to dress. Another piece of advice that I was given, you dress for the part. So if your job requires you to wear a suit and tie every day, then you should interview in a suit and tie. If it's business casual, then you should probably wear business casual, but you want to look 100% for interviews. I was fortunate to do mine in person, and then I've done a few over the phone. So it really doesn't matter what you look like because they can't see you. But still, like Bree and Tyga said, or Brianna, sorry, and Tyga said, it's just even just dressing, and if they can't see you, you still feel like, you're doing what you can, and it puts you in the mood and the mindset. So
Yeah, I definitely agree that it puts you in the mindset, gets you ready, and you feel prepared even though they can't see you. I feel like when you're talking over the phone even, it feels like they can see you. So it's always best to look as if they could. How did you negotiate your salary? Tyga, do you want to go?
yeah, I'll take that one. Well, luckily, I didn't have to really do any negotiating because the pay raise that I got, I was like very satisfied with. Like, because I mean, just the salary I was getting, like, just coming out of school, I was very satisfied with that. And then also, like, I got the pay raise in January, so it was even before I hit my 1 year mark. So I was very happy with it. I love my job, so I really had no complaints, and I really didn't have to renegotiate anything. But if comes a time where maybe after my 1 year mark, maybe we'll see.
Okay, so I'm going to change up the question a little to see how you would answer. If you weren't satisfied, how would you go about negotiating?
So I would, like I mentioned before, like those goals that I set for the year for myself, and also kind of compare how maybe I'm doing versus colleagues or counterparts within my team. Because even though I am like my position is an analyst, and there's some professionals and senior professionals on my team, just kind of showing how even though maybe I might have not, even though I might not have all that experience, just the kind of things I've been able to do since joining the team and making the team better, working with different members of our team. So kind of how my impact, how good of an impact I've had on our team and for the company so far. So bringing that up as a discussion.
So kind of reflecting on, how well you've been doing and checking in with your goals to see, how much am I worth?
Yeah, it's important to know your worth.
Yes.
Very important.
Bree, do you want to go ahead and answer that question as well?
Yeah, so I actually did negotiate my salary from the jump. And I kind of did it based off of like, what kind of plans did I have for myself? Like, was I trying, like at the time, I was trying to leave my parents' house. Like, I'm trying to get this first job. There's a lot of things that went into it versus just getting the job. And I could have been grateful that just getting the job, like that could have been where I stopped, but I didn't. And I actually did mine through like an email. Like I emailed and I said, like, before I like accept this completely, I just have a question, and I just went for it. And I basically hyped myself up on the little things that I had on my resume, and went from there, and it worked out for me. I was satisfied after that. And then actually I received like kind of like, wow, like you're bold, like you just graduated and you negotiated your first salary. Like that was pretty good. So I say, try it, go for it.
Yeah, what's the word?
Well,
You can hear it.
That says a lot about your character too. Like, go get them,
Definitely shows the initiative and the assertiveness and confidence in yourself to say like, no, I deserve this because I'm going to give you enough to earn it.
Right.
Awesome. So another question from the Q&A. What resources did you use to find your open positions? Does anyone want to start off?
I can.
Okay.
So internships, I would say, at least for me, or if you want to go into, depending on what field, but internship was a huge thing for me. And then my professors at Marymount, I mean, they talk about networking. I mean, they know so many people, it's not even funny. So if you need help, just go talk to them. Like, even if you graduate, go talk to them. I still talk to Dr. Foster and Dr. Farrell. I mean, those are two people I continue to talk to. They ask me how I'm doing and whatnot, and also how I could help Marymount and, serve. But yes, they are a huge resource, and career development now, but at the time, career services, very huge resource as well. I mean, I did 3 mock interviews with you all, and so I would just say internships is a good way, and it's a resume builder. As a student, I mean, it's kind of hard to have a full-time job or whatever. So internships, and I know for the criminal justice program, and I think for all majors now, or most of them, you have to do an internship so to graduate. So that's an easy tick. And trying to get an internship in a place you potentially would like to have a job could be a good stepping stone. So
yeah, I'm very, very glad that Marymount, forces all students to have an internship, because I think it really is, like you said, a great door to the opportunity. And if it doesn't lead you to joining that company that you're interning with, then at least you can put it on your resume. You can maybe network with inside the company, and then also staying connected with your professors.
Yeah, you also learn what you might not want to do. Like, I did my juvenile probation internship, and I was like, I don't think I could handle what happens to these children on a daily basis. It's not a pretty picture. It's not cherries and sparkles or whatever. And I was like, that I just couldn't do that. It was a great experience. I don't deny it, but so you also learn what not to do, or what you don't think you could work day to day, and you can work off of that too. So,
which kind of brings it back to what Tyga was saying earlier in the discussion of, you learn a lot from things that you wouldn't really consider successful. Because, I mean, sometimes it's okay, but as long as you keep learning. Tyga, what would you say the resources you use to find your position?
So my situation was a little different. So I had recruiters reach out to me on LinkedIn, actually. I only really applied for one position, like not using LinkedIn or any of those other resources, but definitely making sure you're utilizing LinkedIn, because it's not like any of those other social media apps. It's a networking app, and that's where you make connections, build connections, put your resume on there, put the skills, the job positions you want, because the amount of recruiters on LinkedIn is like a crazy amount of number, and you never know like who's going to reach out to you. And I never would have thought that I would have started my career from a LinkedIn message from a recruiter asking me to reply. So definitely utilizing LinkedIn. It's going to be your best friend.
I never realized how important LinkedIn was until last semester. My IT teacher was like, no, everyone is creating a profile right now.
Yeah.
And even as, I mean, just finishing my freshman year in college, I've still been having people reach out to me. So I can definitely see how LinkedIn could really get you places.
Mm-hmm.
Brianna, what resources do you use?
So I definitely took advantage of LinkedIn for sure, with the whole like even looking up the company and looking at the people and who was ranked like #1, or even looking at people who had in their I guess like their title something that was like either like HR or recruiter. Definitely like just messaging those people and saying, hey, what are you guys looking for? And like I didn't necessarily tell them that I was applying, but just saying like, hey, and if the conversation went well, then I may have snuck that in there that I was applying. But definitely I use LinkedIn a lot. And then I also use Handshake after I like figured out how to create my little profile and make it something and not just have my name with no picture. It definitely worked out for me. And I actually found out like working from the Y that they actually use Handshake a lot now that I'm here from the inside. Just like we're a smaller organization, we're not like super big, but to realize that like even the YMCA puts stuff on Handshake, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. That's awesome to hear that you guys now utilize Handshake, because, you know, I don't think students really realize how many connections there are on Handshake. With a lot of big names, small names, whatever they're looking for, they can find on Handshake.
Yeah, I've had some recruiters reach out to me on Handshake when it went live. I think maybe it was my junior or senior year, but I remember creating a profile, putting my resume on there, and some recruiters did reach out to me from that. So, and they still do. So maybe I should delete my profile. It's a Marymount profile. I don't know if I still need it at this point.
Yeah, so for all the attendees, make sure you're checking up on Handshake. As we wrap up, we do have some questions specifically for Tyga. The first one is, how important were certifications for getting your position, and how would you advise somebody to land an internship at Freddie Mac?
So certifications, I think certifications are good. I'm a little like 50-50 with certifications. There are certain certifications that will advance you within your career path that are good to get, but then also making sure that you're not just taking random certifications just to have it like on your resume, but rather certifications that are tailored for your position or position you're trying to get into, anything like that. Because I took my Security Plus because I was tailored to my career development. I'm working towards one of my AWS certifications, since more things are moving to the cloud now. So definitely centering the certifications you're getting and making sure they fit to your career development.
That makes sense. So that was actually our final question for the panel. We want to thank our panelists for your insightful responses. Thank you as well to our attendees for joining us for this event. We wish our graduates all the best as graduation approaches, and please remember that the Center for Career Development continues to be a resource for you as you pursue your next steps after Marymount. Thank you all for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Girl, you are
Oh my
on
gosh.
point. Woo!
You are amazing,
You
Alexis.
are on
You
fire.
crushed it.
I'm
Crushed
fine.
it.
You crushed it.
Is this still recording?
Yes,
Yes,
Yes.
it is. Cut that piece out.
I'll cut it out. It's cool.
Wait, did you stop it yet?
No.